What happens to a person when they spend decades trying to keep pace with a rhythm that was never naturally theirs? Long before we are old enough to choose, we inherit ideas about success, productivity, worth, and masculinity. These expectations form a script written by parents, culture, and institutions. For Emrys Grayson, that script dictated endless, grinding production. Born with an internal rhythm that favored observation and strategy, he instead tried to force open every traditional door. The internal fire of undiagnosed ADHD met a world demanding rigid consistency. When you push against your own wiring, temporary exhaustion stretches into days. Without a framework to understand this friction, it is easily internalized. A different working style becomes labeled as laziness. Sensitivity is diagnosed as weakness. Measure a person against a standard built for someone else, and their natural differences look like flaws in the machine. 47 years of living against his own grain produced measurable consequences. The effort to keep up led to a repeated cycle of lost relationships, financial instability, and exhaustion so deep that recovery often took weeks. To dim the static and silence the mind's inner fight, addiction offered a desperate, crude coping mechanism. It was an attempt to survive the friction of an ill-fitting identity. Facing that reality required pulling apart survival tactics of the old identity. Through psychological shadow work, the protective layers finally fractured open. This period of destruction holds no romance. Pain is a harsh teacher, and it is the literal cost of an unexamined life demanding to be seen. Rock bottom provided the necessary destruction of the inherited script. It left a blank slate where a more accurate map could finally be drawn. Orientation out of the darkness requires gathering evidence from multiple directions. Carl Jung's psychological framework provided the tools to face repressed truths and integrate the shadow. The writings of Marcus Aurelius introduced the philosophy of Stoicism, demanding radical personal responsibility. Simon Sinek's work on purpose provided the framework to define the why beneath the struggle. Combined with cognitive function tests, values assessments, daily recovery principles, and meditation for nervous system awareness. When applied together, these independent frameworks acted as mirrors. They repeatedly highlighted the exact same traits: deep intuition, sensitivity, and strategic pattern recognition. These systems helped separate inherited expectations from observed reality, recovering an identity that had been present all along. This animated diagram shows a simplified human design body graph. For Emrys, this specific system acted as a catalyst, providing a vocabulary for patterns of energy, recognition, and stillness he had experienced but couldn't name. Highlighting the non-sacral centers reveals the mechanics of the projector type. It visualizes an architecture built for observation and guidance, rather than grinding production. A pulse from the splenic center illustrates splenic authority, a quiet, immediate, body-based instinct. It is a signal of alignment that strikes before fear or mental debate can overrule it. Overlaying a timeline charts the 3-6 profile. It reframes a history of mistakes as the necessary third-line process of learning through trial and error, eventually leading to a stable phase of integration. Zooming into gates 52 and 18 maps the cross of service. These nodes represent the ability to find stillness under pressure, paired with the capacity to identify flaws without using correction as a weapon. The chart provides a diagnostic language for the terrain he was already standing on. Understanding this map requires strict boundaries. Waiting for recognition is not an excuse for passivity. Trusting your intuition is not a free pass for impulsivity. Self-compassion creates the safety needed to examine your flaws, but it does not remove accountability. Understanding why you failed gives you context. It does not grant permission to stay broken. The map must be put to work in physical reality. For Emrys, that means the daily practice of sobriety, building a legacy through fatherhood, and translating the journey into the song The Projector. The change emerged from pain examined, wisdom gathered, and difficult choices consciously repeated over time. A map can help you recognize the terrain. It can identify your exact coordinates, but you still have to walk the path yourself. A belief being familiar does not make it true. Much of what you believe about your own limitations is simply someone else's script. A meaningful life comes from identifying foundational values and making the hard choices necessary to prove them. Give yourself grace. You must forgive yourself for the crude coping mechanisms you developed before you were given the proper tools to survive. What would happen to your life if you stopped worshiping your wounds, dropped the inherited script, and started building from truth? Human design gave the language. The soul map revealed the patterns. Recovery provided the accountability. Life gives the evidence. The map does not make you. Your choices do.